welcome to this exclusive networks production back in 20, which is a webinar series of 4 20-minute episodes about Vade Secure Predictive Email Defense. My name is Juan, and I'm going to be your host for today. So the topics of today's episode, first I'm going to go through about 10 slides or so. We're going to talk about email security and why I personally think it's important. We're going to talk about some of the other players in the space. We're going to talk about Vade Secure and features and benefits. And then at the end, we're going to have a guided tour of the partner portal, administrative portal, and also the just a brief overview of the backend configuration. And I am going to try to do that in 20 minutes. So let's get started. Okay, so the landscape. Basically, you know, the message that I try to convey in this slide is that to me, you know, people sometimes assume that the email is just fine, it's okay. But the reality is that, you know, the email is probably the most direct path that an attacker can take to get to what is oftentimes the weakest link in an environment, which is the user. You know, if you look at you know, movies on TV or show episodes, you have these super hackers that can pretty much break through any encryption algorithms and, you know, do it while they're watching something on TV themselves. But in reality, you know, most successful, you know, cybersecurity professionals that you know, maybe attempted this or started from one side and then turned to another side and what have you, they're usually just really good at social engineering, which means that, you know, they research their targets really well, and then they convince people to give them the credentials that they need in order to execute attacks and compromise networks and organizations. And one of the easiest ways that you can do this is through email, because you can have a really good network security configuration, great firewall, endpoint protection, and I can circumvent all that by sending you an email. And the worst part about it is that we have our corporate email everywhere. We have it on our laptops. We have it on the desktop if we have one at the office. We have it on our mobile. Some people have more than one mobile, and they have it on all their mobiles. And then we have tablets, you know, iPads at home. And oftentimes we put that on there too, so we can check our emails while we're watching TV on the couch. So imagine that if I'm a bad guy and I'm sending you an email, there is anywhere from 1 to 4 different devices where you can make a mistake and I can get what I need from you. And, you know, from the perspective of the cybersecurity professional, you know, and I know this has been said a lot of times, but you have to protect all the time. The bad guy only needs to get lucky one time and they can get what they need. So I'm a very big football fan. That's, you know, American football, NFL. I wonder if you guys are familiar with Black Mondays. So essentially Black Mondays is the first Monday after the NFL season's over, where they fire all the bad coaches. So this is actually a metric that I found very interesting from one of the Vade Secure publications from last year, Q3. At the time I made this webinar, they didn't have the Q4 numbers yet. But if you look at what's happening here in this heat map, essentially, you know, there is also Black Mondays when it comes to bad emails. So while you guys are out with your families over the weekend, the bad guys are planning whatever their next wave of attacks are going to be. And here you can see what the most common email attack campaigns surround some of the applications that we use the most: PayPal, Microsoft, Netflix, Facebook. I mean, I don't know a single person that doesn't have at least one, probably all of these. I know that on this list, I think there's maybe 2 that I don't use. I have an account with every other one of these. So make sure you bring your A game on Mondays. So the players, obviously, besides Vade Secure, there are other vendors that offer email protection, and they have their own way of doing it. We're going to talk about the difference between a provider that uses a gateway method where you have to change the Amex record versus Vade that uses Microsoft API, so you don't have to change the Amex record. And that's a huge differentiator for Vade Secure when it comes to your ability to get up and running quickly. So my opinion is that eventually a lot of these providers are going to have offerings where they're going to leverage Microsoft APIs more and more. I don't think that all of them will completely transition to that kind of technology, because a lot of these, they offer other services tied into their email security. Yeah, and I'm talking about things like archiving and DLP, or data leak protection. And the guys who are doing that, they're going to have some very hard decisions to make, because if they start offering something else, then they might cannibalize some of their own clientele. But guess what? Microsoft does do archiving. And when you're doing DLP, you need to look at a lot more than just the email. So, and this is kind of a continuation of the previous slide, where you have a company that is filtering emails prior to their final destination. Essentially, you have to change the Amex record and point it to your filter, and then from there, the emails go to their final destination. Whereas with Vade, the email goes to Office 365, and then it gets inspected through the journal rules. And depending on the verdict of the email, Vade uses the Microsoft Graph APIs to move the email depending on what you configured on your admin dashboard. And we're going to have a look at that in a few minutes. All right, so how does Vade work? Upon receiving a message, Microsoft will scan it with Exchange Online Protection and or ATP. So I do want to mention that EOP is standard when you buy, I believe, Office 365. ATP is not. So that's something that you have to pay for. When you then deploy some of these gateway technologies that they're filtering the email outside of Office 365, you are essentially rendering these technologies useless. So yeah, ATP, you could discontinue it, but if you have Exchange Online Protection and you're paying for that as part of your Office 365 and you're not using it, that's part of your membership is being wasted. So Vade makes a copy of the email through the Microsoft Office 365 general rules, performs its analysis on the copy of the message, and then connects back to Office 365 to retrieve all the user preferences. And then depending on the verdict of the filtering of the inspection, if there's nothing to do, the email goes to the inbox. If the email is determined to be a spam or scam or phishing, and you have an action that you set up on your admin dashboard, then that action will take place. This is how Vade Secure stacks up against Office 365, Exchange Online Protection, and Advanced Threat Protection. And these graphs are pretty self-explanatory. So on a scale from 1 to 100, Vade Secure is 63% better than EOP on phishing detection, 56% better on malware detection, and when compared against ATP, 17% better on phishing detection, 30% better on malware detection. So if the bad guy only has to get lucky one time, that's a lot of stuff that EOP and ATP are missing. So it's not really fair. All right, so if you're offering services, if your clients are looking for email protection, if your clients are on Office 365, please have a look at Vade Secure. It's reliable, it's reputable, it works. They have, I think they've protected over 600 million mailboxes globally. So you could certainly do a lot worse. All right, so let's take a look at how it works. All right, so first, I want to show you, this is the partner portal. So this is how you're going to manage your licensing and your customers. So here briefly, I just want to show you a couple things. On the home screen, you can see all your licenses. So you can keep track of all the licenses that are going to be expiring soon. You can see all your trial licenses. Down here under administration, and by the way, my screen is going to look a little bit different than the reseller screen because I have the ability to add, I got signed out. I got to sign in back again. Ah, there we go. I have the ability to add companies, whereas resellers will see their company. But you do have the ability to add users. And then more importantly, you will have the ability to add customers. So customers is how you're going to provision trial and licenses. So essentially from here, from the customer option, you add a customer, you fill this out, they will get an email. And then once you have a customer added, just gonna click on one, you order a license, and then you're gonna need their tenant ID. And you can here pick what the license is gonna be and what the payment plan options are gonna be, and also the users. Very important about the users. This is a bad example because here we just have one of one. But for example, if you initially ordered the license for 25, but you're only using 10, you are going to be billed on protected users. So on the 10. So that's something that's very important. So now that we talked about that, let's talk about the actual configuration, technical configuration of the backend, as well as the admin dashboard. So you're gonna come to the Office 365, right? If you are just selling this to a client and they are managing their own portal, then obviously you're not gonna have admin rights to their Office 365 portal, but you can walk them through the process. So you're gonna log into the Office 365 portal, you're gonna go to admin. Under admin, one of the very important first things that you need to do under users, you're gonna need to add a contact that is outside of the protected mailbox address. And I'm gonna show you why we need that. But make sure you do that first, okay? So once you do that, within admin, you're gonna go to Exchange, and Exchange is gonna take you here. And then from here, you're gonna go to Journal Rules. And here, there are two things that you need to do to get this going. Number one, you need to set up the undeliverable journal reports address, and this is why you needed to add that contact. In the past, you were able to just type something in here. You're no longer able to do that. Now you have to browse and add something that is already existing. So obviously you wanna have that email that is outside of the protected mailbox for the undeliverable journal reports. Once you save that, the second and final thing is you're gonna add a journal rule. So you're gonna click on the plus sign, you're gonna get this pop-up, and here you're gonna put journal at office365.us.vadesecure.com. Name Vade Secure Journaling. Apply to all messages, and you're gonna hit save. And that is all you need to configure for the backend. Now there's gonna be some specific use cases where some folks have purchased their Office 365 subscriptions from other third parties. GoDaddy comes to mind, but ultimately the navigation would look a little bit different because you get redirected to the GoDaddy portal. But ultimately, you're gonna end up in this screen where you're able to do those two things. Once you've done that, then all you need to do is you're gonna go to the admin portal, and this is the portal from where you manage Vade Secure. The portal looks like this. You have a dashboard with statistics about everything that the tool sees. And then you can click on each of these and get reports about that statistic specifically. I'll get back to that in a minute. But before you see anything, you have to actually configure these 6 options here. And I like to actually start from right to left. So this first option is all about convenience. So this is a way to just keep your mailbox tidy, right? So you have newsletter, social, purchase, and travel emails. You have 3 actions that you can take. The way that I would do it is to just move those emails to folders with those names. And then these folders are going to be created on the user inbox, and then those emails are going to be placed there. And that is done leveraging Microsoft APIs. By the way, make sure that you hit apply after making changes to each of these tabs. So, and then when you do make changes, you're going to see this green thing here. Next, we have spam. So they have 4 classifications of spam, and then you can have a different action for them. Again, the way that I would do it is I will move them to a folder that I designate. In this case, I call it Vade junk. And any email that is classified as spam is going to get moved to that folder. Next, we have phishing. And essentially, there's 2 types of phishing. There is regular phishing, and there is spear phishing. If everybody is unclear on the differences, I guess the easiest way that I could explain it is by using a real phishing analogy. So to me, phishing is where I have 1,000 hooks with no bait, but I'm going to throw them in the water anyway, because there's always going to be that one fish that, because it's curious or it's inexperienced or is ignorant, they're going to want to bite the hook. So that to me is phishing. Spear phishing, on the other hand, is where I drive around in a boat. I live in Miami, so boating is a common thing down here, by the way. And then I'm driving around in a boat, and I'm looking for that really big fish. And when I see it, right, I'm going to try to spear it. So I'm going to put all my efforts into catching this really big fish. So how does that really translate into email defense? Traditional phishing campaigns are just mass campaigns. And a lot of the times those emails are not really well crafted. You find a lot of grammar, spelling errors in there. Spear phishing emails is where the bad guy, he researched you on social media. You know, if it's a local target, maybe they went as far as to, you know, they found out where you worked or where you lived through social media. Because I mean, it's incredible how much information you can find about people from social media, because social medias are linked from, you know, one to the other. So you start here, then you go to another one, then you jump to another one, and now you have text and preferences and pictures that put you in different places. So if someone really wanted to research you, they could find enough to draft a real legitimate email. So the way that you can protect, I'm gonna actually jump one and start with the regular phishing. Protect against, with Vade Secure against phishing is, first you're gonna set up the action. The way that I would do it is to move that to the junk folder. Also, there is a very interesting feature here, which is time of click. Another important aspect of email protection is education. If you can make, you know, they say that curiosity kills the cat, right? But if you can make the cat really smart, maybe he's not going to want to click on every single email that has a link on it, right? So what I mean by that is that if you're offering services to your customers around email protection, then you can make education part of your services, and you can leverage Vade to help you in this enterprise. The way that you do that is by enabling type of click, and then you can set up an email campaign with the consent of your customer and send it to everybody in the mailbox once a quarter, twice a year. You know, you guys get to decide that. And then you're gonna have in the logs information about everybody who clicked on links in the emails. So then once you get that, you know, from a protection standpoint, this is also useful, because obviously if you are protecting, you want to know if somebody clicked on an actual bad link. But from an educational standpoint, then you can come back to your customer and say, hey, maybe we want to schedule an hour, and you don't have to be there physically. You can do it over WebEx also, once a quarter or twice a year, and educate your users, particularly these ones, so that we can strengthen what it would be otherwise often referred to as the weakest link, which is the user. Also, you can set up to receive email alerts when phishing is detected. So this here is what the user is going to see when they are protected by Vade Secure and they click on an email with a link that is suspected of phishing. So they're going to see this while the link is being inspected. And that's another thing I want to talk about. This inspection happens every time the link is clicked. So it doesn't matter if the user clicks on it 20 times, it'll happen 20 times. If they forward the email to other users and they click on it, it'll be inspected every time. And this is really important because there are other tools that inspect things initially, and once they've been cleared, they're assumed to be cleared. And the way attackers get around that is that they use, or everybody's using URL shorteners now. So what they do is that you can customize what those shortened URLs point to. So they'll initially point to a legitimate website. So it passes inspection, and then 2 hours later, it'll point to a malicious link. So Vade combats this by checking the link every time, and they'll follow the path of the link regardless of however many redirects it takes. So the user will see that while that inspection is taking place, which takes seconds. And then depending on what comes back, they will either see this, if it's been identified as phishing, or if the link is dead, they're going to see this. I do want to point out that there is here, the user still has the ability to proceed if they really want to, which is why to me it's so important to educate the cat so that, you know, they don't click on the link. So spear phishing. So spear phishing is one of those where it's very difficult to really detect, and it's where you would see, where I have seen in all the tools that I have encountered, the majority of the false positives. Because, for example, at my last job, my boss had the bad habit of sending me emails from her personal as well as corporate email, because she was using her mobile and she had an application where she had multiple mailboxes, and sometimes you don't pay attention to what mailbox you're sending the email from. And sometimes she would send me emails to my personal mailbox because she had that address from where I was going through the interview process, right? So all you see in those mobile mailboxes is the person's name now. You don't actually see the email. So there's a lot of times where these are legitimate emails. But what you can do in these circumstances is you can make the user suspicious. And you can do so by choosing to put a banner on those emails that are suspected to be a spear phishing attempt. So then the person gets the email. If it's an email that is legitimate, they'll still get the email so they can act on it, but they're going to get the banner, so they're going to get verification from that source that they are the ones really sending the email. And isn't that what we want? We want the user to basically be suspicious. You know, call that person up and say, hey, did you really ask me to buy $500 worth of Amazon gift cards? And they're going to say, yes, I did, or I don't know what you're talking about. So that's what we want, and we achieve that with a big red banner. By the way, these banners are customizable. You can change the text, the language, and also the logo here. So you can put your logo on it. Next, we have malware. And then from malware, usually that's going to be on an attachment. So that, again, you get a banner here, and you have some options. Some people choose to delete. I personally would prefer to at least try the strip attachment, where the person still gets the email, but they don't get the attachment with the malware on it. Because they may be talking to someone that they don't know is a bad guy. So they may be expecting that email, but when they get that email with a banner, now they are not only not looking for that email because they got it, but they also found out that whoever they were communicating with has malicious intents. And then this banner also is customizable. So once you're done with all of that, you're going to come to the global setting, which initially will be in monitoring, and you're going to switch that to protection. And essentially, if you guys can see this text, if not, I'm going to read it. In protection mode, your emails are protected and your settings are applied. In monitoring mode, your emails are not protected and your settings are only configured or pre-configured, which means that Vade is watching, but it's not doing anything. It's not enforcing. And then auto remediation, and this talks about if there is an email that is originally classified as legitimate, but then later reclassified as something else due to either manual administrator operation or the Vade algorithm that has been changed, then Vade would look at other emails that also match those signatures and make those changes as well, even post inspection. So I want to show you, we talked about the time of click. We have a couple minutes. Okay, so I want to show you in the reports tab, the comparative report. This is essentially a way that Vade, it sells itself, right? We talked in the slides about how it compares to Office 365 when it comes to especially malware and phishing. So you have this dashboard where it's constantly measuring itself up against Microsoft. Now in this environment, we don't have ATP. So I feel if we did, the numbers might be a little bit different. I feel confident that Vade will still win. But you can see here, and your customers can see also if they have access, that this is a justification for why you got Vade. Because on any given day, Vade can catch over 42, or if it's 7 days, over 330 malware emails that Microsoft did not see. And if you guys are wondering why I got so many emails, it's because I have an email campaign against this mailbox that I drafted using Microsoft Flows, which if you guys need help doing that, by all means, get with us and we can help you craft that so that I have things to show when I do these demos. Finally, I also want to mention that Vade Secure is giving out free NFR licenses to the partners. So essentially, you could have your own portal, protect your own Office 365 account for free, and then leverage that as your demo environment. So you could be doing the same thing that I'm doing. So that is all I have for today. Okay, and if you guys want to dive a little bit deeper into the technical aspects, we can get together on a call. We can bring in the Vade technical team on the call, and we can answer those questions for you guys. All right, so that's all I have for today. I thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you on the next episode.